Good evening, everybody. Friday evening. It's time for Conversations from Lockdown. Before we get on to my guest for this evening, just a reminder once again about those competitions brought to you by Equipage in association with Kyalami Park Club. All the information that you need to know is on the Kyalami Park Club Facebook page, so please go check it out. Also, don't forget our quiz evening tomorrow night. All the information is there for you as well. There is still room for a few more teams, so make sure you do check it out. Promises to be a whole lot of fun. Right, without further ado, let's introduce our guest for this evening. She's a multiple winner. I don't think there's anything that she hasn't won in this country. She's won South African Championships, Outdoor Grand Prix, World Cup qualifiers, and of course the Derby. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you tonight, Nicola Sime-Riley. How are you?
Hi, Aidan. All good from lockdown here in Benoni. We're having a great time as a family, riding, carrying on sort of as normal, as you can say.
Tell us about your setup that you have. For those who don't know, where are you based? What services do you offer? You run a livery yard. You teach. You train lots of people from various levels. Give us an overview of your business.
Yeah, so we are on the East Rand. We in Benoni. I've been on Benoni, well, based in Benoni all my life. I've got a yard with about
we won't hold that against you. We don't
I know
judge.
Where you live, eh? I know where you live. Yeah, so I've basically been at this yard since 2003. I used to run a yard with a friend of mine just down the road, and then we relocated basically the whole yard, lock, stock and barrel. Everybody walked down the road, and we started up Sunny Park Stables. And yeah, I teach pony riders, juniors, adults, moms that just want to ride and have a little bit of fun. I've got a little riding school with a couple of instructors that also teach on some school ponies. So yeah, it's a busy yard.
Full on operation. How many horses in the yard? How big are you?
We've got 70 horses at the moment, but
Cool.
After lockdown, no one knows, eh?
Yeah. And how big is the property?
We've got 7.5 acres. So it's not very big, but it's well set out, and the paddocks are well managed. Most of the horses, well, I can't say most, all the horses go out every day for about 4 or 5 hours, and then by lunchtime they're standing at the paddock waiting to come in. So.
And now tell me, a lot of yards have eased off given the uncertainty. We don't know when we're going to be back in the competition arena this year. It could be a while yet. Some people have eased off of their horses. Some people continue full steam ahead. Which route have you guys gone?
Well, on the younger horses, I've eased off a little bit. You know, with them, they don't need to do too much. My bigger horses, I've put a little bit more effort in. Remember, I had my shoulder up at the end of last year, so I've sort of been out of the ring since November. I was supposed to have my first show back at President's Cup, so basically I've backed off the jumping, but I've started doing a little bit of, you know, exercise work, training, getting them a little bit more together underneath you. And then obviously at the same time, I've got clients' horses that we're working, just ticking over, keeping them fit more than anything.
And what are your expectations? When are we going to be out of this? Are you are you informed? Are we all just waiting? It's a waiting game. Have you heard anything?
Well, I think we're all a little bit in the dark. You know, you'll get these messages sent to you, and in the beginning I would send them out, and I got into big trouble with my husband. Stop sending out this fake news. So I stopped sending messages on to people because I don't want to get into that debacle of fake news. But basically, you know, it's just a waiting game. You know, when do we know? I think it's going to be a little while still. Yeah.
Let's talk about you. Born and bred Benoni girl. Is that where you were raised? You've been in that area your whole life. Where did you go to school? Your early years?
My whole life in Benoni. I've actually been to a couple of schools. I went to St. Columba's in grade 1 and 2, and then I went to Ferrymeer Primary, and then I went to St. Dominic's for 6 and 7, and then I went to Benoni High. And then I took a gap year, and well, I'm still in it. I was quite fortunate to fall into what I did.
Well, tell me the whole story. Were horses in your blood? Did you come from a horsey background? How did you get into this whole lifestyle, this equestrian lifestyle?
Well, my mom and dad are originally from the UK and Scotland. My mom used to have a cousin that used to have horses, so they used to just play and, you know, have fun on the, well, I don't know, in the fields, and just have a big jaw with the horses. So when I was a baby or growing up, she used to always stop on the side of the road and let us have a look at the horses. And then I started riding lessons when I was 5. And then basically, you know, my whole riding career for pony riders and juniors, I never really competed. My mom just wanted us to ride to have fun. Never in her wildest dreams did she think that I would have done and achieved what I've done. So basically, I started at a little riding school just down the road here. It used to be called Pat's Paddock, run by Pat van Rienen and Pat Barr. They actually ran Carswell while Carswell was still in Kyalami area. And then we moved. Then Julia and Claudia took over. And then basically they ended up, I think they sold and moved. But, you know, in the interim, we were baiting a horse, and then, you know, as things happen with riding schools, something happened and we ended up having to move. And I ended up riding with a lady called Leslie Delaney, and she saw a little bit of talent, or, you know, raw talent there, and said, you know, let me help this girl a little bit and let me have a few lessons with Anne Hill. And basically that's where my riding career started as a young junior.
So you say you never competed much in juniors. So when did you kind of come into the competition arena? Was it more towards your later teens?
So as a junior with Leslie Delaney, we competed in what in the old days it used to be novice JE. And I used to ride 1 or 2 of her horses. And then, you know, it was quite far out, and we ended up moving closer to home. Never had a horse. We got our first horse only at 14, my sister Katie and myself. My mom bought it for us as a Christmas present. And basically that's when we started having a few shows, a few lessons. But yeah, I only really started competing properly as an adult.
So you left school, you decided to take a gap year, and you fell into horses. How did that all happen? I mean, you were riding, but did you that gap year, you didn't go overseas, you didn't try and, you know, travel or anything as young people do, you just hung out at the stables and that's how you got hooked, really?
Totally. So let's go back to the beginning. When we first got our first pony, Foxy, my parents were never going to buy us a horse, ever. And it was Christmas, and my dad said, oh, go and look behind the couch. One of the dogs has made a mess. And we go around the back of the couch, and there's a saddle. And we're like, yay, we've got a saddle. You know, this is amazing. I was 14. My sister was 12. And we're like, awesome, we've got a saddle. You know, it was the biggest thing in our life. And then my dad came out from the toilet. We'd finished, you know, just cleaning up and whatever, and my dad came and said, oh, there's one more gift for you guys, and he handed us each like an A4 piece of paper that was wrapped up in a picture frame, and we both opened it, and it was a certificate of ownership for this pony that they gave to us. So we were besotted, big tears. It was amazing. You know, I had all these ambitions to ride and jump, but at that stage I had very little experience, very little jumping knowledge. But, you know, as all of us youngsters, we think we know everything. So basically that's where it started. And then 2 years later, I was 16. You know, I'm quite tall. You know, I'm not one of the shortest. So I outgrew the pony. So my parents then helped purchase a horse for me, but they said they can't stable a second horse. So I started waitressing from when I was 15 and a half to pay for the second horse. So through school, I waitressed. And then when I left school, my gap year, I couldn't really do anything, either like go overseas or whatever, because I had all these commitments. So I couldn't dump them on my parents and say, well, I'm out of here. So then I started working for British Airways, and I started teaching in the interim. You know, we'd moved around a little bit, and we ended up moving back to good old Pat's Paddock where I'd originally started. And there was a very kind lady called Sue Bride. She had a few ponies and said to me, look, if I want to start teaching, I can use the ponies, pay for their keep, and give her half of my earnings. So that was great. So in the mornings, I used to go and work at British Airways. In the afternoons, I used to try and teach a little bit. And then in the evenings, I used to go and waitress. So it was a busy life. So I didn't have time to go overseas. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just grew from there. Was that horse that you got when you outgrew the pony, was that Sharp Colt, or did he come into the picture later?
He came into the picture quite a bit later. That first horse was, we called her Piglet. She was a real large horse, but, you know, she used to be a little bit colicky and never 100%. So I ended up then getting a second horse. I moved Piglet to one of my clients that I used to teach in Boxburg. She had a place on Ridge Road, so she allowed me to keep the horse there. And then I used to go and teach her and ride there at the same time. And then I bought a horse from, I think it was Patrick Kay. And he said to me, look, I couldn't afford it. It was a lot of money for me at that stage. I think I was 19. And he said to me, look, if I can help you, I'll let you get the horse for a little bit less. So, you know, we had a couple of lessons. He came down to the yard, and there was a couple of girls that used to ride with us. But then, as all groups of people end up doing, they fall away. So it ended up only being me, so he couldn't come out for one person. So basically, then I had a couple of horses. You know, I was always one of those. I knew where I wanted to go. So if the horse wasn't good enough, I would sell it on to somebody else who it was suitable for. And I was very, very fortunate. There was a lady that started, well, her kids started riding with me. Her name was Cassandra Hunter. And she joined up with me at Copperfields, which was the old Pat's Paddock. And she basically got me going. You know, we bought ponies for her boys, and then she wanted to start riding. So we went to try some horses out, and Sharp Colt was a horse we bought for her until we got him home. Then it was like he was a monster. And she says, Nicola, get rid of that horse. I don't want to ride it. I said, please, can I buy him? I'll buy half shares in the horse. So I paid him off over 2 years. And yeah, that's where Sharp Colt and I began.
Well, tell me about that journey. Did you get him off the track, or had he already been produced a little bit?
So originally he came from a lady called Tina who used to ride with Rogan. And he was a 4-year-old when I bought him, a little squib. I think he was jumping novice E. You know, that's how far back it is with those letter grades. So basically I did a couple of, you know, training shows with him, got him going. And at that stage, I'd also started riding with Gonda. Chad and I had become good friends. I was riding with Sean at the time. And then he moved and started training on his own. And he said to me, look, you know, you could possibly come and ride with Gonda. So I was like, wow, that would be amazing. And then I started riding with Gonda. So just before I got Sharp Colt, I'd actually had an old Warmblood that I used to ride with Sean. And I thought I was the bee's knees. And
you're talking about Sean Henderson?
Henderson, yes.
Right.
So do you remember the old days he rode right? It was Right Choice, hey? That Warmblood, that imported Warmblood that he got. Anyway, I bought a Warmblood that looked quite similar to him. And I thought, geez, I was the bee's knees. It was before I was really having proper lessons. And I thought, I'm going to take this horse to Sean so he can see what I've got. Like, just so cool. And then my eyes grew very wide. And I thought, I don't know as much as I thought I know. It's time to start learning. So basically, I'd started with Sean, got going, and then met Chad, got in with Gonda. And I used to ride that poor horse with knee boots because I used to crash and bash and burn that poor thing. And everyone says, I can't believe it. I said, I was more than useless. I couldn't see a stride for love nor money. It was quite scary.
I love hearing stories like this because it makes us mere mortals feel a little bit better and give us a little bit more encouragement that we can get there as well. At what stage did you then branch out on your own, set up your own facility and say, right, this is the life that I've chosen. This is what I'm going to do. I'm leaving British Airways and I'm now a full-time equestrian.
So when I was at British Airways, they actually offered me a full-time job to run the Qantas office. And I said, look, I've got a shot at running my own business here because I was doing, juggling the 3 jobs. And I said, unfortunately, I want to give this a shot. So they said to me, look, if they could put the yard in the back behind there, they would, because they wanted me to stay. And I said, look, if it doesn't work out, I'll give them a call. So then I'd already started getting quite a few clients at that stage, and I'd built up the yard. And, when Sue took over, she bought it as a going concern. But, as any riding school, it goes, the trainer is the business. The people want to ride with the trainer, not be there for the stables. I mean, I suppose you do get a few people that are just wanting to stable their horse and keep it there for leisure riding. But I'd basically filled up the stables and got quite a few clients in and bought their own horses. So Sue would run the stables and I would run the riding school. And then, as things happen, we ended up parting ways, and I'd met a lady by the name of Nicola, and she was just around the corner, and I was actually stabling that horse called Piglet with her at that stage. And she said to me, well, why don't we start up shop here with me? I've got a couple of stables. We'll throw a few more together. And a month later, we did the trek with all my clients around the corner, and off we went to, we called it Perrywood at that stage. And her and I ran a business there for 7 years. And, we were the best, we became best friends. We're still very good friends. She lives in the UK now. But, at one stage she said she wants to stop the yard. It's too much hard work. And I said, well, look, I want to get going with my own yard. And I found the property we're in now. And basically all that was on the property was a house and a pool house. So we started from scratch.
And how long, you did mention it, but how long ago was that?
2003.
2003. So you've built the whole place up and really given yourself a wonderful facility. So while this was all going on, Sharp Colt was in the picture, and that's really the horse that you made your name on. You hadn't jumped up the grades on any other horse. You hadn't had experience in the bigger grades until he came along and you produced him all the way. Is that correct?
Correct. I had, as I told you, I had that horse called Thoroughbred, and I always tried to put him up the grades before I put Sharp Colt up the grades, because I always knew that he was going to be a great horse. Nobody believed me, but I thought he was going to be a great horse. And then Toro got to C grade, and he was quite an old horse when I bought him, and he broke down, and as things go, he had to retire. So Sharp Colt then sat in C grade at that time for 2 years. And I'll never forget David Wilkins saying to me, Nicola, when are you going to go up to the next level? I said, when I'm ready. Because I didn't want, I've always, and I try and say that to my juniors and adults that ride with me. I say, when a horse learns to stop, it's always there at the back of their mind. So I'd rather take a little bit more time and get going from there. And then obviously as he went up the grades, he just, I don't know, blew everybody's mind out the water. It was, he was just a great horse.
Well, tell me about him. Tell me what you achieved. And he was a little thoroughbred. He was a sharp romance?
Yes. Out of
and the dam line?
A plum bold mare.
Ah, okay.
I think that's where the jump came from.
Yes. And he wasn't the biggest horse in the world, as I remember, but he was very electric, very fiery, and he had little pogo sticks in his legs. He could just ping off the ground.
Totally. He was, as a young horse, when I produced him, people used to say, how do you sit so still on that horse? Because he used to land between the jumps and bounce like a little bouncing ball between the fences. And basically, everybody used to say, what is going on there? How does that girl get that horse over those jumps the way he used to bounce around? And then obviously he matured as he got older. When I was pregnant with Aiden, he had a colic op. So he'd won the 2 President's Cup national competitions the 2 years in a row before I had Aiden. Then the year I was pregnant, I didn't feature in anything. I think I was jumping in the international classes by then. And then I came back from having Aiden, and he won the Indoor Grand Prix that year. I think it was November, December, the Indoor Grand Prix that they had at the Dome. And then he won the International President's Cup the following year and the year after that. And then it was just, I remember standing on the bank with Gail at Maple Ridge the second year that we won the President's Cup. And Gail said to me, do you know, Nicola, I used to watch this horse. I used to think he's a fabulous little horse, but he's just never going to make the 150s. And she says, and there he goes. He just, he was amazing. He had a big heart.
Did he really open the door to other rides, to opportunities? I mean, how important is it as a rider that you have horses competing in the big grades, that people suddenly sit up and take notice and says, that person deserves a chance?
Definitely. He definitely opened the doors. But at that stage, obviously, I only had him competing in the 150s. And I think I had a Euro Chris, which is Crispin's father. I jumped him in the 130s. But, when he actually broke his leg in the paddock here at home. That's how he ended up dying. But
who was that?
Sharp Colt.
Sharp Colt. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, it was in 2009. So he'd won everything, jumping 1.60 m, and he fell over a paddock fence playing silly fools. But basically, he was my only horse that I'd obviously got up the grades. At that stage, I had Connoisseurs. I'd been to Namibia with the promise of getting the ride on the horse, and then the next thing, it was to be sold. So obviously, I made a plan and paid him off. But so he was only jumping in the 130s. And again, a lot of people didn't think he was going to make it up into the 150s. So when Sharp Colt died, you know how people go, she's never going to jump up the grades again because it's a one-horse wonder. It's a thoroughbred, and thoroughbreds are amazing. They've got great big hearts, and they do what they can for you. So when he died, it was quite a big shock. But it just made you work harder and get going more. And like you say, it opened up the doors for people to go, sure, she can ride, she can get up the grades, and obviously then I've had a couple more since then.
Well, tell me about them. You've mentioned Connoisseur. Tell me the story behind him. How old was he? You say he was backed and going in Namibia. You went to go see him there. He's turned out to be an absolutely fantastic horse for you. Let's hear the story about him before we move on to the great El Paso as well.
So Connoisseur was a 7-year-old jumping 1 meter in Namibia. He was owned by Wolfgang, the vet that's in Namibia. And he owns the Ziggy stud. He wasn't bred by Ziggy, he was bred by the Neuhaus stud, out of a thoroughbred mare by Holsteiner. Fantastic horse with loads of personality and kindness, and he's also one of those horses that he's given me his whole life. He's 18 now. He's always been knocking on the door, second in South African champs. He was second in the Derby. He was second in World Cup qualifiers, and then he finally made his debut and won the Outdoor Grand Prix in 2017. So I was really chuffed for him.
And was it a big transition for you from thoroughbreds onto him? You say his dam line was a thoroughbred line. I think it's a seducer line, if I'm not mistaken. But was he similar in a way to Sharp Colt, or did you have to really work at getting to grips with the Warmbloods? Was it a transition, or did it come pretty easily?
It came pretty easily for me, bearing in mind I ride so many different horses for different people, schooling them, getting them going. So from donkeys to thoroughbreds to Warmbloods, at that stage I would kind of just get any catch ride that I could, just to kind of prove myself that I could get going before I got Connoisseur. and Sharp Colt. But Connoisseur was quite different. He was a little bit cold, but then he would get a little bit electric at times. So, you know, it all depended on his temperament on the day. Everyone always forgets he's a stallion because he's so calm and so chilled. And then the next thing, he explodes out of his little sheep clothing and turns into this big wolf. So, yeah.
And how's he doing? You say he's 18. He's still, he's evergreen. He's still full of zest and willing to do the job and sound and happy.
Totally. He loves it. And, you know, he's the boss of the yard. He's got this big stable with a big window, checks out everything. Nobody's allowed to get too close to him because he starts getting a little grumpy that, you know, it's his place. But yeah, he's ready to go. Well, he was ready to go for the year. So we'll see as soon as we can get back into the ring.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be ready to go.
You've had wonderful years with him, but of course, the horse that you've probably had the most success on, also Consuelo line, is the wonderful El Paso. Tell us the story behind him and how's he doing, because there was an injury and he's been out for a little while.
So El Paso came to me as a 4-year-old. When I bought Connoisseur, I said to the lady who'd contacted me about him, I said, are there no other Consuelos around, you know, that's a bit similar to Connoisseur? And she says, yeah, there's a lad that rides in the south and he's immigrating and, you know, he's looking at selling this horse. I said, okay, well, would she mind sending it to me and let me have a look at it? Out comes this little narrow squib of a horse with no tail, no canter, like an absolute donkey. And I got on him and I was like, I think this horse is going to jump. And my husband at the time said to me, no, it's not going to jump. You must. I said, yeah, we'll see. Let's just give it a go. And that's where we started with him. And I mean, he was one of the quickest, easiest horses for me to produce. I had had him for 3 weeks. He couldn't go in a straight line. Within 3 weeks, he jumped his first show at a meter. And then I chucked him out for 6 months, and then I brought him back in again, and he jumped, I think, 2 or 3 110 shows, and then a 120 show, and I chucked him out for another 6 months because, I mean, he was too young. And, you know, I don't want to just keep jumping for the sake of jumping. And then at the end of the year, I brought him back in for the FEI show in the 120s. And then I jumped him a 130 training class just at Dunblane down the road at the end of the year. And then the following year, we started I suppose, again, I chucked him out from the November until about the February, and then it was Maple Ridge. And I thought, I'm going to put him straight into the 130s. We'll just go straight into the President's Cup 130s. And I remember walking the course, and everyone was still faffing. And, you know, there's, you know how many riders are in the 130 classes, and it was the last class of the day. And I only had El Paso and Connoisseur. So I decided, I've walked the track for the 135s. This looks fine. Went up to the top. Everyone was still doing nominations and changing entries because I remember in those days you used to nominate on the day. Yeah. And I was like, just going to put him straight into the 135s. And that's basically where he started his career. So that's how he was just incredible.
Yeah. And relatively straightforward, his temperament, he seems very laid back, chilled.
Well, he is chilled when he's on the ground. When you get on him, I always call him my little piggy because he squeaks and squeals and bounces and has a big fat play. Gonda gets most upset with me when I allow them to play. She always says to me, my horses are badly behaved, but unfortunately that was his temperament. And because he's a little bit cold, if I didn't allow him to, you know, have that little bit of spark, I always found I struggled to get him to the back rail of an oxer. So yeah, he's on the ground. He's a sweetie pie. My daughter can go and stand in the stable with him and Connoisseur. But yeah, on them, I put my son on him. He must have been about, I think he was jumping in the 135s already. And I said to Aidan, come have a walk on him. Well, El Paso went, what is this? And he basically like dropped down and then hit this, you know, when they cock their head to the side and looked up, and then Aidan makes this squeaky noise. And that was it. my groom's holding him and starts spinning him like a yo-yo off the top of him. So, yeah.
Boy. Some of the big wins, I mean, you then hit the big classes, and he found it pretty easy. The Derby came, there were World Cup wins, the SA Champs. Take me through some of those big moments.
So for me, I think he's been the most consistent horse that I've ever owned. He tries. He's never been one of those big scopy horses, but he tries with all his might. Derby, you know, he's jumped 4 double clear rounds for me with the Derby. The first Derby that he jumped clear, it was obviously quite a shock. There was 4 of us clear, and I was, you know, go for a nice clear, and ended up with time penalties. I could have kicked myself because you only have one shot at it. And I could have come 4th or 4th, and I came 4th. But anyway, he the next year he jumped. I think he had a clear round, and then I can't remember. He's had, you know, he's jumped a couple of clears, and then a few years with pole and a stop and a whatever. And the one year he was top qualifier, and he ducked out at the stile with me. I had my trainer Gondo on the side of the arena saying time. So I was moving him on a little bit. I think I cut the turn a bit too tight, and he ducked out the side with me. And then he had his big win. And
what was that like to have come so close and then you achieved it? What does the Derby mean to you?
It's one of the biggest highlights of my life. Do you know, I never wanted to jump the Derby when I had Sharp Colt. I actually didn't do Derby fences with him. He was a little bit spooky when it came to that kind of stuff. And remember, the bank used to be like a sheer drop off. And I was like, there was just no ways I'm going down there. So when I had my first, Connoisseur was my first horse that I took around the Derby. And, you know, it was an amazing thing just to see the finish. But to see the finish and to win it is, I think it's every girl's dream.
And the year that you won it, just to refresh my memory, did it go to a jump off?
It did. Who was in the jump? I can't remember who was in the jump off now. Jeez. Can't even remember. Oh, it was Anne-Marie and Ronnie. And I was first in, and I did put a bit of pressure on, and obviously it paid off because each of them had a pole down. And yeah, I was the only double clear that year.
Yeah. And then there've been a few World Cup wins. If memory serves, there was one up in Polokwane at Revel. What does the World Cup mean to you? How many wins have you had? And what's your best finish in the overall series?
The World Cups are really, really tough tracks. So to jump a clear and to win a World Cup is really something. That World Cup that I won at Revel, I was on sheer form. It was the same year I won the Derby. I was strong, I was fit. And, you know, when I watched the round, it was faultless. I had a good forward tempo, and he just was with me. You know what I mean? When a horse is with you and you say, well, when it comes, and you say go, and it's off. So it was amazing. And I mean, there was about 5 or 6 people that had gone clear, and I was top qualifier. So I went last, and yeah, it was incredible.
Another big moment. In terms of the points tables, what's been your best finish?
I think I finished 2nd and maybe 3rd. I can't actually remember offhand with the World Cup series. And
then El Paso, just correct me if I'm wrong, but it was also the South African Championships you won on him?
Yeah, he's basically won, I think, every title there is to win. Yeah. So that horse is just my 1 in a million. He's won the Outdoor Grand Prix. He's won the South African Championships. He's won the Derby. He's won I won the Polokwane World Cup on him. He's won Grand Prix. He's won almost everything there is to win.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, he was injured. Has he come back from the injury? What was the injury? Are we going to see him out and about when we're all released, when we're all paroled?
Well, it actually started off probably the year after he won the SA Champs. He failed the vet check the following year. It was when we had it at Kyalami. So it was 2018, the year Kelly won it.
Yes.
And I was like, no, man, they're mad. And then when he went home and I trotted him out the next day, he was a little bit short on the right hind, and we didn't know where it was. And we rested him and he sort of came right. But it ended up being his stifle. So, you know, he's had a bit of rest. He's had a bit of laser. He's had a couple of treatments, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what he's like after the lockdown. I actually wanted to just take him to the vet to get them to have another look over him to see. Mm-hmm. But, you know, like I've said to people before, if he doesn't come back into the ring, he's deserved his retirement.
Yeah. How old is he now?
16.
16, yeah. He's done it all, huh? He's got nothing left to prove.
No.
And of course, you've got a big string of horses and some very, very nice up-and-coming horses. Let's talk about my favorite. You know who that is. How's he doing? The little bouncy Crispy.
Old Crispy Crackling. He's just playing a little bit at the moment. You know, I always find with him, he's a little horse. He's, funny enough, he's bred similarly to Sharp Colt. He's out of a Sharp Romance mare. But, you know, he needs to have a lot of energy. I feed him up a little bit for shows. So at home, he's a little bit flat. So now in lockdown, it's just a couple of us riding. My sister lives sort of across the road from us, so she comes and helps, and she rides. He's one of the horses that she rides. And yeah, so he's just playing around a little bit at the moment. He doesn't need to jump. He just loves it. She did the Candid.
And his character, because he seems like a real character. He just plays around. I just love watching him. He just seems like so much fun. But on the ground in his stable, is he a happy, bubbly chap as he is in the ring?
He is a very happy horse. He's unfortunately locked up in the stable with a grid at the door because he windsucks. And he's far too clever, far too cheeky. You know, the normal door, I'd just barricaded the bars at the front and he'd then stand on his feed bin and then windsuck on the top of the door. So we then had to just close up the top so he doesn't windsuck. But, you know, when he's out in the paddock, he is so naughty. Whoever's there next to him to play with, he will be playing with them. If there is a piece of rubber in the paddock, he picks up the rubber and he throws it around. He throws his teff net over the wall next door. He's just, he's a total character.
And do you think he's in his place where he is, or is there more to come from him? Can he go further?
He's actually competed in the 140s already, and he came third, I think it was, in the 140 Grand Prix in Shongweni a couple of years ago. And then he had a little bit of a wobbly. I want to say he knocked a pole a little bit harder than he probably should have. You know, he's not a horse that likes to knock. And then after that, he kind of felt like he was a little bit anxious. So I've left him in the 135s. Do you know, I just love riding him. You know, my husband always says to me, you've got such a smile on your face when you ride that horse. He's just so much fun. You know, nobody else can ride him, bear in mind. I've tried. I've put people on him and they all end up on the floor because he just, you know, when he puts his head down, they don't I kind of let the rein slip through my fingers and they all hang on. So he pulls them right over the top of him. Yeah. So he's quite fun. You know, he actually started off as, I bred him. He was too small. I tried to ride him and I went, oh no, this horse is too small for me. I'm never going to ride it. I put him in the riding school. He then threw everybody off. That's where he learned that bouncing trick. He used to canter and then just bounce and chuck all the kids off. So I was like, oh. Then I had a young girl that used to ride with me. So she then produced him up to like 110s. Little bit of an amateur rider. So she would, you know, get half strides, sometimes 2 and a 1 stride combination. But, you know, he was always game. And I'd said to Lexi Stace, it was when she was still riding here, I said, Lex, you need to look at this horse. You should try it. And he was jumping 110s at a show in Kyalami, and I said to her, just try him out. I said to Law, come and have a look at the horse. And they popped him over quickly, just over a 1.30 meter vertical in Oxa in the warm-up arena by the open classes. And Lexi still said, wow, how old did you say this horse was? 5. I said, yes, 5. So they tried him out, and I was like, sure, that actually looks like maybe I could jump it. Yeah. So I got on him. That was on the Sunday. Then we actually had Shongweni coming up the following week. We were leaving. So on the Monday, I thought, let me just pop him over a few jumps. Let's see. So I put up a track at like 110, 115. And I popped him over the jumps. I went, sure, actually, you can carry me. I'm not as heavy as I thought I was. And then I phoned Shangwe and I said, have you got any scratchings? And they said, no, there's no scratchings. And the day before we were leaving, they phoned me and said, we've got a scratching. And it was actually still when they jumped in that grass arena. So my first show with him, his first show jumping 120s and first show in the grass, I think he placed in all 3 classes in the 120s in the grass arena. I had about 5 people ask me, do I want to sell him? I went, no, I think I'll keep him now. So that's how I ended up keeping that one.
Well, you know how much I love him. I just, he reminds me so much of Tigger, just, you know, the Winnie the Pooh character just bouncing about. I think he's a real little Tiggery character. I wanted to just go back to El Paso because he's got that, when you were talking about sometimes he doesn't make the back rail in the beginning, but he does that exuberant stretch for the back rail with his front legs. Has he always done that? Has that always been his technique?
Always. He's never been the most orthodox when it comes to jumping the big oxes, even as a young horse. He would jump huge over it. But he's always just reached and had his little knees up to his chin.
And then you ride a few for Kay. Tell me about the ownership and the partnership there.
So Kay and I met at a show in, it must have been at Burlington, one of the Burlington Cups a good few years ago. And, you know, Kay's quite shy. We've become very good friends over the past few years. And when we first met, I don't know who she was. I think she was with Maud at that stage. And Maud was relocating, so she was looking for a rider. And I think she'd asked somebody else to ride the horse. And then she just happened to be with Maud, and Maud stopped to chat to me. And then Kay ended up chatting to all of us at the same time. And then she'd said to me, you know, I would love for you to sit on my horse. It was that Concaro, that imported mare that she'd bought for her daughter. Quite a hot little thing. And I said, yeah, well, you know, if she's interested, I'm more than happy to come and sit on the horse, and, you know, we can go from there. And I came and rode the horse at her place in Kailami, and she said, right, let's get going. And that's how we started off our partnership. And then with that reach for gold, I think she was going to have Paul Hart riding the horse. And then I think I was riding another young horse of hers that she'd bred, and Paul couldn't make the show, and for gold was entered in the train. She asked me at the show, would I mind riding the horse? And I was like, oh, at the show. And she said, you know, it's her first show, young horse. Oh, anyway, I rode her, and she was, you know, she was super. She went really nicely. And then she just said to me, you know, would I like to ride the horse? So yeah, we've had a good partnership for the last couple of years. It's been great.
And the horse is at you?
Yes. So she owns Reach for Gold, and she owns Contessa, that other Consuelo little mare that I jump in the 130s. And then she's also got a horse called Concaro, which is a connoisseur out of that imported mare, Cara van der Valk, that I used to ride. So that's also with me jumping in the 1 meter 110s now.
And then Inzaghi came into the big classes last year, if I'm not mistaken. What's the future hold for him? Tell us a bit about Inzaghi.
So Inzaghi came to me to be sold. Same as Laser, funny enough. They both came to me to be sold. Both really quite difficult horses. Yes. And with Inzaghi, we call him Ziggy at the stables. He's quite a headstrong kind of horse. So on the flat at home, he's really lazy. But when you put the jumps in front of him, he's like a bull in a china shop. There's no stopping him. So I was given the horse to ride to produce him to get going to sell. I think he jumped 140s in Europe. And Renelle and Fred brought him in to sell him. And yeah, well, the rest is history. I ended up buying the horse because I loved him. You know, he's just one of those, give me the fence and let me get to it.
And where is he in his production? And by that I say he's in the big time, but is there more to come? Because he looks like a horse that has been developing all the time, getting stronger. The rideability is coming. How good a horse do you think he will be? Will he be another El Paso or Connoisseur?
I'm hoping so. I feel he's got so much heart, and he's got so much scope. I've actually never jumped a horse with as much scope as him. So I'm very fortunate that, you know, I was probably riding the right horse at the right time, and, you know, said to my husband, please, you know, this is something we need to look at. So we ended up buying him, I think also over about, I paid him off over about a year. Renell was really good to me. And I feel, I'm hoping he's going to be as good as them. Look, he's got big boots to fill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Let's talk about your business. You ride, obviously, and you compete, and that's very important. But the business side of things is really the teaching. And you have a huge string of horses to get through every day. Now, I don't know how you do it. So tell me about your day, and then also about your week. Do you have work riders helping you with the horses? I mean, how big is your string? You must have 9, 10 horses that you compete in the ring.
Yeah, that's my open horses. And then I've still got youngsters that are working as well. So there's a few ladies that ride in the mornings that are competitive, and what I do every night before I go to bed is I actually I've got a managers group that I send to my staff, and I say, right, Lauren's riding that horse and I'm riding that horse. And so basically, you know, we normally ride about between 6 and 8 horses a day. And I just kind of move them around. If they need to jump, then I'll ride them that day. If they just need a little bit of a light work, then I'll give them to somebody else to just go and have a little light work on. The weekends, generally, I give them off. I don't work them too hard. I find they do need to have a little bit of time off. But in the mornings, it's chaos. You know, I start at 6 o'clock in the morning teaching with some moms and some kids before school and work. And then I'll ride with some of them, and I finish riding, teaching at about 10, 11 in the morning. So it's a very busy morning, and, you know, people have often said it's like a conveyor belt. You know, I'll say, right, get the next one ready. And we always have a little bit of a joke. My horses like to parallel park, you know, park assist, like your cars. You can literally just take your feet up the stirrups and they come to the fence and they parallel park, and you climb off, and they get their bridles taken off, their carrots given to them, and the next one's standing in the queue for us to get on. So, yeah, I've got a good team.
And how long on average do you spend on each horse, or do you give it day by day, give it what it needs?
Day by day. Some horses need a bit more. You know, I've been given a horse by Renell that's quite a tricky mare. So some days I'll spend more time on her, and then other days I'll just give her a little bit of a break. My bigger horses, Connoisseurs, Paso, well, obviously he's not going at the moment, but it's just fitness work. You know, they know all they need to know. So it's just about keeping them fit. So I don't have to ride them every single day. Sometimes they'll just go on a long rein and trot a little bit long and low. And then when they need to have a jump, I'll get on them, or a little schooling, I'll get on them. But yeah, so the younger horses are the ones that need more of my time, and that's what I love doing. I love teaching. I love teaching the young horses and getting on them. And, you know, the difficult horses, I always end up getting the difficult ones. You know, Gonda always says to me, your horses are so badly behaved. But I always end up getting those naughty, badly behaved ones, because I think I have a reputation. You know, she's nutcase. Give her those crazy ones.
The naughty ones are normally the good ones. They always have a little bit of fire and character in them, the good ones. And then on a day-to-day basis, do you follow the same schedule every day? As in, like a Monday you might be off, a Tuesday would be fitness work, a Wednesday would be some jumping, a Thursday some track work, or again fitness or a hack. How do you break up your week, or is it again horse by horse what they need?
It's exactly that, horse by horse, what they need. So Connoisseur, again, I go back to Connoisseur and El Paso. With them, I'd literally jump them maybe once or twice before a big show. The rest of the time, it's just fitness work. And, you know, I'll do canter pulse. That's one of my biggest exercises. I'll do canter pulse with almost all my horses almost every day. And if I'm not riding them, the riders that are the experienced riders, they'll also do the canter pulse on the horses that I've given them to ride. But yeah, it's more the younger horses that are a little bit more tricky and need a little bit more work. If I've done an exercise with them on a day and I've finished off quite well, I'll let them finish on that. And then maybe the next day, just take it a bit easy. I might still do the exercises a little bit, but just take the pressure off so that they're not feeling like they're getting boxed in.
And then teaching. So you finish your day at 10:30, 11 o'clock with the horses, with the riding, and then is the rest of the day teaching, bearing in mind there's also a family to consider. You've got kids at school and school runs. Who does all of that? How many balls are you juggling here?
So in the mornings, when I say I start at 6, teaching and riding, so I teach ride until about 10, 11. Then I've got a couple of hours to sit on my laptop and catch up on all my emails, and a lot of them I miss. My mum runs my business, basically. She's the captain of the ship, so to speak. So she runs the staff and she does the finances and everything. So I try and keep up with all the emails that I get sent, queries, some clients, asking a few questions, or if there's some problems or whatever. Then it's time to fetch the kids. And unfortunately, with my kids having such a big age gap, my daughter finishes at 1:20 and my son only finishes at 2:30. So I'll fetch her, then come home and do some homework with her. And then on a Wednesday and a Friday, I start a little bit later. So I'll fetch my son from school on a Wednesday and a Friday. But then the other days, my mom actually helps and fetches, because I start teaching at 2:30 on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And then I finish around about 5:30 most days.
So a lot of organizing and logistics to take into consideration. When you're jumping, so say you have a big show with your open horses, a Connoisseur in El Paso, one of the big guys, and you say you give them a jump. At what sort of level are you giving them a jump? Are you jumping big tracks, or are you just keeping their muscles ticking over? Like you say, they know the job, you know the job. It's not like you need to keep your eye in. You're a consummate professional. What sort of level are you training them at?
So at home, if I'm doing a little bit of training, normally what we do is, the way we work it is, Gonda comes up the week before a show. So I'll maybe the week before that just jump them maybe about 1:30 at home. And then when I go for my lesson with Gonda, we just jump a track maybe once at about 1:45. We don't jump massive, but it's just to, keep them ticking over, keep their eye in a little bit, and, not suddenly throw a big jump at them when they get to the show.
Yeah. Gonda's obviously a huge influence in your life. As a young girl wanting to be an equestrian, was she at that stage the ultimate, your hero? Were there other riders that you also had your eye on that were big influences on your career?
So when I was younger, because I wasn't such a competitive rider, I wasn't really, I would watch show jumping when there was show jumping, but obviously we didn't have as much as what we have nowadays. And we went to Sun City and watched the Super Bowl when Gonda and Annalie and all of them were jumping in the Super Bowl. But when I was competing, I used to look at Domini and go, that's how I want to sit. I would, and my friend Nicola Perry that I speak about, I'd say to write, come and watch me and come and tell me, am I sitting up enough? Am I sitting up enough? And she would help me at home. And when I started with Gonda, I was 19. And when I say I was useless, Aidan, useless is quite an understatement. And I think the only reason she taught me was because maybe I sat pretty, because anything else was quite a nightmare. So she basically took me from zero and has made me what I am today. Obviously, I've had a lot of trainers that have influenced me through my life, but also I was one of those that I would get a book and go and read a book and teach myself what I could from a book or whatever. But for my show jumping career, Gonda's been my idol. She's been my role model. She's been my trainer, my confidant. She's been everything that's made me what I am today.
You're obviously very fit from riding all these horses every day, but do you combine that with any sort of other training, gymming, Pilates that is focused on helping your riding?
Yes, unfortunately, as we get older, we don't lose weight as quickly as we used to after that last Christmas holiday. Nicola and I...
lockdown.
Yes, exactly. Nicola and I had a good chat about it. It was a couple of years ago, and she says, when she hit 40, she found that it was more difficult. We couldn't come back from a Christmas holiday and just ride 5 horses and then the weight was off. So we have to also be a little bit more careful now as we've got older. I've actually got a gym that we built, it finished at the end of last year. I've trained with a biokineticist for the last probably 7-8 years, Ananda Hatting in Benoni. Fantastic. She's been really good for me. Remember, I had a knee injury. I broke my knee when I was riding Castigo about 10-11 years ago. So I struggle with my knee my whole life. So I have to keep it strong. I have to keep it fit. And I do go to Pilates to a lady down the road as well. But yeah, I mean, I ride about 8 horses and then I spend about an hour in the gym when I gym at home as well. 20 minutes on the orbital, 20 minutes on the bicycle, and then just a bit of weight work. And obviously with my shoulder, I have to do extra exercises as well. Yeah.
In terms of your training, you spoke that you do a lot of pole work. You're very classical in the way you ride, very, very correct. Any other influences, any sort of dressage training along the way, or your flat work? What sort of principles do you incorporate into your flat work? Are you big on your lateral work? What is your theory behind everything?
Do you know what my theory and my methodology is? I'm an A-type personality. One of my friends that rides with me in the mornings, we have a good chuckle because we both say we're A-type, and then each of us have got a child that's an A-type and one that's not A-type. So I've always been on those lines of, if I'm going to do something, I must do it 100%. And it doesn't matter what I do, whether I swim or ride or cycle or do Pilates, it must be 100%. I have a mirror and I work with a mirror so that I'm straight in whatever I'm doing when I'm training. So the same with the horses. You know, if I want to be in the middle of the fence, I must be in the middle of the fence, and I'm very strict on myself. You know, it always goes down to discipline. And I've got the development guys that I teach, and this morning I was helping Justin, and I said to him, "You've got to be more disciplined. When I say wait, I mean wait." So for me, it's a case of, if you want to do something, you've got to put all the effort into making it 100%, because there is no time to make mistakes when those jumps get bigger and the tracks are a lot quicker and on top of each other.
And your flat work principles, lateral, do you like to keep your horses nice and supple, or are you one of those people who go, right, what is the improvement that I can work on today? What's lacking? Perhaps it's flying changes, and that session is dedicated to just the flying changes. Or, well, you might pick something else. Let's work on gears today, and it's just that. So you break your sessions down, or are you one of those people who go, every session you incorporate a little bit of everything?
Yeah, every session I incorporate a little bit of everything. Most of my horses are really well schooled. I rode with Adrian van Wyk for about 15 years, just for flat work. I didn't really do dressage per se. I mean, I've been to a couple of dressage shows, and you know, I actually did a couple of dressage shows with Laser and Insagi last year, at the beginning of last year and the end of the year before. And they did quite nicely in it. But, you know, I always say, as show jumpers, when you're jumping at top level, they have to be schooled. If they're not schooled and in their box, it's dangerous. You know, it's you're jumping big fences, and if the horses decide that they're going where they want to go, you're asking for trouble. So yeah. I am quite disciplined with that, and I do. Again, I'll take each horse differently. Like with Laser, for instance, you know, he's a big horse that carries his head very high, so I will work him very long and low, and that's basically all I do with him. So I've also had quite a couple of lessons with Fred DeVay, that's at Manador. When he comes out, Renal lets me know. So we've done a lot of work, and he's got him really strong and working really well, but it's a lot of long and low work. Whereas with Insagi, Ziggy, we do a lot of up work and, you know, long work and then up work to get him sitting, because he is a little bit downhill. I'm sure when you've seen him jump, he lands a little bit on his nose sometimes. And from the start to where I am now, a lot of people have said they actually can't believe he's jumping what he's jumping, because they didn't think he was that good. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, for me, good flat work. And again, each horse is different. Like I always say to people, what you do and what I do is also very different. You know, how we work, and, you know, what exercises work for you might not work for me. So I kind of take each horse as an individual and work them accordingly.
Mm. Are you into grid work at all? Gymnastics?
I'd like to say yes, but no. I'm not a huge fan of doing lots of gymnastic work. I've got an exercise that I've done with Gonda for years and years, and it's a vertical, and it's about 3, depending on the size of your arena. Mine's three strides to 3 bounces, and then 3 strides to an oxa in a straight line, and then sometimes you can add like an oxa and a vertical on each side of the vertical, and oxa on the other sides, and then do some figure 8s through the bounces as well. So that's quite nice. I like to do that, but not all the time.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I always think jumping tracks for clients, they need to jump tracks more than.
Yeah. No competitions we don't go to shows to jump gymnastics. But I guess again, it's what each horse needs. Some horses need it, some horses don't. So again, tailor making your exercises to suit the horse that you're sitting on. Overseas campaigns. Have you ever ridden overseas? Is that something on your to-do list?
Do you know, I would have loved to have ridden overseas, but
You're talking like it's the boat has sailed. Why?
Well, you know, especially in this climate. But I always say to, you know, people say to me, why don't you go and ride overseas? You'd be so brilliant. I said, yes, maybe. But, you know, you need to sit on the caliber of horses that they're sitting on over there, which, you know, unfortunately, I've had to build up my horses my whole life. I've never had the finances to go and buy a big horse. And it's a tough game over there. I mean, I know a lot of people that have been over there. I mean, I've often said Sean Henderson, I think, was one of our country's greatest riders, and he didn't enjoy it over there, and he ended up coming back. He just, you know, it's hard work over there. Yeah. Besides the fact my back would never cope with cleaning out a stable. It would be very, very difficult I wouldn't be able to ride my horse after cleaning the stable.
I was chatting to Barry the other night. I don't know if you caught his interview, but he mentioned you saying that how he thinks it's such a travesty that, you know, we used to have these Tri-Nations series where you could get your Protea colors or your Springbok colors, and those seem to have fallen away. And he mentioned you in particular, saying how he thinks you're such a great rider, and how sad he is for you that's something that you haven't achieved because those opportunities just aren't around. What would you have to say in response to that, and how is that something that perhaps we can look at remedying?
Do you know, it's a conversation Nicola and I have both had together, because, you know, she's in the same boat as me. She's also achieved everything there is to achieve. I've mentioned it once or twice to a couple of people. I've mentioned it, you know, I'm on the Safe Exco, and I've mentioned it and said, you know, how do we go about trying to bring back in this Tri-Nations? And I think it's maybe something that us as riders maybe need to look at driving. It is very unfortunate, and I always say that we're at the top of our game now, and it would be amazing to ride on one of those teams and get our Protea colors. I mean, I've got my Protea colors as a coach, but, you know, to get Protea colors as a rider is something, you know, every top rider would only dream to have. So,
well,
yeah.
You're on that Exco. You need to hustle.
Yes, definitely.
Now, before we say goodbye, international competitions that you watch other riders, who would be some of your best favoritist riders in the world? For me, I'm a big Scott Brash fan. I love Steve Gerdat. Those are probably my 2 tops. A lot of people are Earning fans, Ludger fans. Where does your heart lie?
Do you know, I can't say that it's one particular rider, but when I watch them, I watch the way they ride and the way they sit and the way, you know, for me, it's all about the control in the body. I mean, like you say, Scott Brash, like Ludger, you know, they are amazing to watch. And when I watch them, it's something that I like to try and take back into my own riding, to go, right, I see, you know, I video when I ride, I video every day. So when you watch those guys, I watch them and say, right, what am I going to put back into my own riding when I watch them? But yeah, definitely Scott Brash, I think, is probably one of my best, and Ludger, definitely.
Having won everything there is to win, I mean, we did talk about Protea colors and perhaps those that will come. But having ticked all those boxes, you've got the derbies, you've got the SA Champs, the outdoor Grand Prix. Is there anything missing? And where I'm going with this, are you still as hungry as you were, say, 10 years ago?
Do you know, when people ask me the question, what do you want when you're riding? I said, I just love it. I love being in the ring. I love competing. I love to win. But for me, it's just amazing, and it's just such a humbling thing to be able to ride these horses, and they allow us to do what we do. So for me, it's just a love for it, really.
You've won qualifiers, but a World Cup series would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's probably the only thing that I haven't won is the series. Yeah. So yes, definitely still hungry.
Apart from horses, I mean, you've got a family that keeps you very busy, but any other interests apart from horses? Any other hobbies? You're a nature person, a beach person?
Okay, when people ask me, do you love going to the beach? I say, definitely not. I'm in a sandpit in the sun all day. I don't want to go to the beach, but my kids love to go to the beach. So, we go for the kids. I love going into the bush. We've been very fortunate. Family friends have got a lovely place in Thorny Bush, and good close friends of ours have also got a place at Ingulala. So we've had amazing times in the bush with them. So yeah, if you give us a chance to get going away, we're there. I obviously used to cycle. I've been warned within an inch of my life, if I get back on a bike on the road, I'll be dead.
Yes. Well, what exactly happened? Because some people won't understand the connotation, but that's the shoulder injury. That was off of a bicycle. What happened?
So the shoulder had been giving me a couple of hassles already beforehand. I'd been struggling to sleep. Before the Maple Ridge World Cup qualifier, I went to see my orthoped and he injected it. And, it was the weekend of the 94.7. My husband says to me, don't you wish you just left me lying on my bed? I said to him, come, let's get going. We're going for a cycle. And we dropped the kids off at my sister's on the way. Like I said, they're just across the road. So they got on their bicycles, rode to my sister's house. I said to her, we'll be just 45 minutes and we'll meet you guys back at your place for a bride. And off we go. I think we'd been going for about 3 kilometers. And, I was on the pavement. My husband was behind me. And as I came off the pavement, when the curb and the pavement are joined, there was a little lip and I was too shallow. So my bicycle wheel, the front wheel, caught the lip and my bike went left and I went head first into the middle of the road. So it was quite scary. And obviously I landed like Superman, like this, with my arm in front of me, and I knew it was gone straight away. So yeah.
You are the epitome of hard work and dedication pays off. You had a dream as a young girl. There wasn't a huge amount of financial backing behind you. This very much is a sport where if you've got money, it just makes it that much easier. You can purchase the horses, you can go for all the lessons and the training and all that. But you put your head down, you work really, really hard. And I think that is an inspiration for young people wanting to ride, but perhaps don't have the financial means. What is your advice to them?
Absolutely. For me, it's about ethics. You've got to keep your ethics up there. You've got to be straightforward with people. You've got to put your head down and don't say it's not fair that I haven't got X, Y, and Z, because, if you work hard enough at anything, you get where you want to go. And that's with anything. I've always said to people, it doesn't matter as much talent as you have. If you don't put the time and the hours in the saddle, you're not going to be as good as the person who's got half the amount of talent but puts the hours in that needs to be put in. So if you put your head down, you graft, you keep your mind to yourself, you don't get involved in the politics, anybody can achieve.
Yeah, And then finally, before we say goodbye, a word to your sponsors. Fulvik is a sponsor, and I think there are a few others. How important, once you get to the top, is it to have sponsors who have your back?
It's a very big thing. You know, I've been with Fulvik for, she was about 7 years. When they first started, I was one of the first people to be on their product and promote it. She's always been behind me and, you know, helped wherever she can. I'm very fortunate at the moment. I've got Western Shop as a sponsor, and they've been, you know, amazing. They've, you know, I've had saddles, and I've had bridles, and I've had riding equipment, which, you know, again, it's expensive, and very, very fortunate that I'm in this position, and I'd like to thank them.
It's been wonderful chatting to you. Hopefully, as I say to all of our guests, we hope we get out of here unscathed in the not too distant future, and life in the show ring will continue. When remains to be seen, but it'll be lovely seeing you back at shows.
Same to you. All the best. Have a good evening.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.